You ever find yourself wishing for a little peace, only to realize the world has a wicked sense of humor? That's exactly how my story starts. If you told me I'd end up in a suburban showdown that involved a compost pit, lawsuits, and more HOA drama than a reality show, well, I'd have laughed in your face. But hey, here we are. So, let me back up a second. My name's Ethan Miller, and a couple years ago, I inherited my granddad's ranch. Not some mega estate, mind you. Just a weathered farmhouse and a mess of fences holding back wildflowers, a bunch of chickens, and 6 horses who honestly have more personality than most people I know. After years of city life, honking cars, neighbors who don't even know your name, I figured a fresh start on this ranch would be the cure. I pictured early mornings, mug of coffee, watching the sun climb over the pasture. Quiet, simple, nobody breathing down my neck. No board meetings, no rules posted on the mailbox. Well, peace lasted all of about 2 weeks. First sign of trouble? That would be Judith, judging by her wardrobe. I think she was born wearing a pantsuit. She's the president of the HOA over in Maplewood Heights, the neighborhood next to my ranch. She drove up in this shiny black SUV, smiled just a little too tight, holding out her hand like she expected me to kiss it or something. "Welcome to the area," she says. "We love to maintain standards here." Now, I knew for a fact my land wasn't in the HOA. The lines are clear as day on the map me grandfather saw to that. Still, Judith had this way of talking that made everything sound like a friendly suggestion until you realized it was actually a threat with a smile. "We always strive for cooperation," she says. "You know, being a good neighbor benefits everyone." I thanked her, kept it polite, and let her drive off. But let me tell you, the way her eyes scanned my property, like she was sizing up a stray dog. For a minute, I thought that was the end of it. I figured, sure, she might be pushy, but she'd get bored and move on. Boy, was I wrong. Second visit, she skips the niceties. She's got a clipboard this time, high heels digging into the dirt, talking about uncertainty over the property lines. "I thought it might be helpful to take a quick look around," she says, real casual, like she's asking to borrow a cup of sugar, not inspect my whole damn ranch. Against my better judgment, I let her look. Figured, fine, get it over with. And here's where the universe shows its sense of humor. She manages to fall waist deep into my compost pit. That's right, the president of the HOA, standing there in her white suit, covered in last month's manure and kitchen scraps, shrieking for help. I haul her out with a piece of rebar. She storms off, leaving a trail of muck back to her SUV, doesn't even thank me. If I'd had any sense, I would have laughed and gone back to my coffee. Instead, I got a sinking feeling in my gut. You ever get that? When you just know something bad is coming, even if you can't see it yet. Sure enough, it gets worse. Next week, I get a letter from some law firm Judith is suing me. Claims her little tumble into the compost pit gave her severe emotional distress, and that my ranch is basically a hazard zone. She wants money for damages, therapy, even her dry cleaning. I call my lawyer, Clara. She's got this dry wit, always chewing on a pencil, and she says, "Let's see the footage." Turns out, my granddad set up cameras years ago, mostly to keep foxes away from the henhouse. They got everything: Judith taking pictures, wandering off where she wasn't invited, and me pulling her out of the pit. At the hearing, her lawyer tries to spin some story about me being careless. But once Clara rolls the tape, the courtroom goes dead quiet. Then folks start snickering. The judge dismisses the whole thing and, for good measure, calls it a textbook example of personal responsibility. For about a minute, I think maybe I've seen the last of Judith. Yeah, you know better than that, right? A few days go by, and, wouldn't you know it, a pair of guys show up at my gate. Contractors, they say. "We're here on HOA business. Your fence is encroaching on our land. Orders are to take it down." Now, let me tell you, nothing gets the blood pumping like 2 strangers with power tools threatening your property. I told them, real calm, "You so much as touch that fence, and we'll see who the sheriff believes." They backed off, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like round 1. Clara and I get a surveyor out, just to be sure. Frank's an old-timer, slow and steady, walks my property with a tape measure and a map. When he's done, he gives me this look almost sheepish. Turns out, not only is my fence inside the boundary, but the HOA's parking lot and storage shed are actually on my land. I mean, how's that for irony? They've been barking up the wrong tree the whole time. Clara nearly cackled when I told her. Let's hit them where it hurts, she said. We file a formal complaint, demand they vacate the land, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I feel like I'm not just playing defense. Maybe you know that feeling to shift when you realize you've got some power in your hands after all. That didn't stop Judith, of course. She sends more letters, has her people post notices, calls me uncooperative. The HOA even sends more contractors, but now I've got the sheriff on speed dial, plus a court order in hand. The whole thing comes to a head in a packed courtroom, board members, neighbors, even a couple folks who just showed up for the drama. Clara lays it out, survey maps, camera footage, all of it. The HOA lawyer sputters about community standards, but nobody's buying it. The judge rules in my favor. They have to move their shed, fix the parking lot, pay damages, and best of all, the judge calls out their deliberately antagonistic behavior for what is. You ever see someone's face when they finally realize they've lost? Judith looked like she bit into a lemon. Afterward, a few of the board members come up, mumbling apologies, promising things will change. Judith? She resigns, slinks out of town a few days later. The new boardless power-hungry, more humble tries to make peace. They asked me to come to a barbecue. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Now, here's the funny thing. After months of stress, anger, second-guessing myself, you'd think I'd feel nothing but relief, right? Truth is, I felt a little sad, too. Not for Judith, she made her own bed, but for the way power warps people, how some folks would rather fight for control than just mind their own business. I moved out here for quiet. Ended up with a front row seat to the ugliest side of human nature. But you know what else? I learned something, too. Sometimes you have to draw a line, even if it means standing alone. Sometimes you have to stand up to the bullies, the busybodies, the people who think rules are made for everyone but them. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you come out the other side a little tougher, a little wiser, and a whole lot more stubborn about protecting your peace. So that's my story, well, most of it. The ranch is quiet now. The chickens cluck. The horses graze. Sometimes I see a new neighbor walking by and they wave, maybe a little more respectfully than before. Peace isn't something you inherit. You have to fight for it, tooth and nail, and then keep fighting because there's always someone who'll try to take it from you. What about you? Ever had to stand your ground against someone who just wouldn't quit? Where's the line between being a good neighbor and letting yourself get pushed around? I'd love to hear your story. What would you have done if you were in my boots? Drop your thoughts below, or tell me about your own run-in with power-hungry neighbors. I bet I'm not the only one who's had to dig someone out of a metaphorical or literal compost pit.
Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã xem video.